Ask Tom on Home Show.
Ted from Deer Park has a question about wavy paneling.
Well, this seems to be a comedy of errors, Tom, candidly, as I read this question. Ted writes, we replaced our roof and discovered we had an HVAC ducting up there that had been crushed by workers who had previously installed PEX water piping. So we bought a new heating and AC unit with new ducting, concluding that we could not have water leaking from the ducts any longer. So how bad was this? Anyway, we have wavy paneling on our wall again, and the roof guy blames the soffits. We've been listening to folks who want to sell us the service and materials. How can we once and for all get to the bottom of this problem? This is such a common theme we hear, where people come in and they're like, well, if that's what we need to do, and they trust where they shouldn't trust.
Yeah, I don't think it has anything to do with soffits, why you have wavy paneling. So I think maybe you need soffits, but it's not going to solve a wavy paneling. If there's water getting in there, we have to find out why. And you have to fix the water. If it's leaking, if it's ductwork that's exposed, it's dripping, if it's a refrigeration line that's not insulated right, something like that. But what is causing the water? I don't know. But that's what you have to do. But I can tell you with pretty confidently that it's not going to be a soffit issue to cause wavy paneling. I've never heard such a thing. It doesn't make any sense. Hot air rises, it goes up. If you don't have soffits, it's not going to go down and say, okay, we're going to make your panel wave. It doesn't do that. There's a water problem that makes any kind of wood product start to buckle, bow, expand, just like on a wood floor. So I would take a better look at it and find out if there's any leaking of any kind going on in there, because that's the only thing I could imagine. But I can't imagine soffits solving a problem.
It could be that there's an insulation issue with some of that ductwork that's maybe it's running so cold that it's creating condensate that's coming out there.
You bet. If it's touching something and the ductwork is crammed in a small area. Mm-hmm. See, ductwork, people think, okay, it's a R8 duct, which is about this big around, the wall's about that thick of insulation, right? So the inside's smaller. And they smush it and they shove it in somewhere. Now you don't have any insulation. It's all smushed together. It has to have the thickness. It has to have the air in it. And so what they do is they cram it in areas thinking, well, it's an R8, it'll be fine. Well, it's not an R8 anymore. Now it's just a thin layer of kind of a aluminum foil, and it's going to sweat like crazy. It can happen in attics all the time, especially during wet times of the year. So you have to have the full insulation, and it has to be totally covered. You can also have metal connectors where the insulation doesn't cover it all the way, and there's a little bit of metal exposed. It'll start to drip, just like a Coke can or a beer can outside on a hot day. And how do you stop it? You put insulation on there, which is that rubber koozie, and you shove it right on there, and it quits sweating because the air can't touch it anymore. So if it's exposed to air, it can happen. And it also happens with refrigeration lines, where you put in a new AC system and somebody didn't insulate the refrigeration lines well. The insulation's real loose, or there's some exposed areas. It'll sweat like crazy right in that little spot and drip water. So somehow I would take a look for water dripping. And Charlie, as I always say, the way to do it is to get up there with your hands and start feeling and putting your fingers in it and everything else and seeing if you get water on your hands. I do it all the time in many areas of home improvement areas to find out if something's wet. Even when I just put in an air compressor and I noticed a little drip, and it wasn't water, it was oil, and I stuck my finger on there, wiped it, there was the oil. I tightened up the connections, dried it off, put my hand again, there was no oil. I mean, you have to get your finger into it. That's just the bottom line.
That's why God gave you two hands, just in case.
That's right.
Look, I'm great at home improvement, see? All right. You want to be good? Click on Ask Tom. Send us your question. That's easy peasy. Just click whether you want to use a form or the video. Either way, you'll come to a form like this. Go ahead and fill it out, and then send us a picture, you see, because it helps us a lot of times understand what the problem is. If we could have seen pictures of that ductwork crushed like that, Tom would probably say, there's the problem right there. So it helps us do a better job for you, and Tom loves to help. That's why he's been doing it for over 30 years, and we're ready to help you for free. And then you'll see him posted every day at HomeShowRadio.com, our Facebook page, and, of course, on our YouTube channel.